Well, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us today on today's webinar, which is the fourth and final webinar in a series of four. If you have missed any of the earlier webinars with the following this series, you will be getting a link to all of them, and they're available online on YouTube to take a look at. But once again, thank you for joining us for the fourth and final of this series. We're excited to have partnered with AIB International on this series, and in particular, our speaker, Judy Lazara, on all of the series. Judy joined AIB International in 1990 and has held various roles, including Food Safety Inspector and Head of Audit Services North America. She is now the Senior Category Director of Food Safety and Global Sales. After graduating from the University of Houston, Judy served in the U.S. Army as a commissioned officer and then joined the fast-paced food industry with Frito-Lay Inc. She is passionate about the food industry and food safety and offering solutions to your complicated issues. For all of you that have not had an opportunity to see Judy speak yet, she does an amazing presentation, and we're looking forward to today's presentation. Judy, welcome.
Thank you so much, Steve. And once again, I thank my friends at AFTO who are just phenomenal for allowing us to do this. And I always tell everybody now that we're doing this whole, everything is remote. I say, welcome to my home because I do this from my home now. So welcome to my home. Let's talk about food safety insights for the packaging industry. We're going to get started with AIB's mission statement. And there's a reason why I want to touch on this mission statement. It says to positively impact the food supply chain. So it doesn't say to positively impact food. It says the food supply chain, of which, of course, the packaging industry plays a big part of. Promoting food integrity, equipping our clients with knowledge, and I hope that's what we can accomplish in the next little bit of the small amount of time that we have together, and then supporting the delivery of safe, high quality food every day. And I hope you all have a similar mission statement in your organization, because really what we want to do at the end of the day is put out safe, high quality food products. And again, don't forget you have a huge role in that. So I'm going to get started with something on the screen. It's a did you know? Did you know? Did you know that on Reynolds Wrap, or even another brand, I'm not promoting Reynolds Wrap, it could be any type of brand, okay, a saran wrap, anything similar to that. Did you know that if you push the ends of the container, if you push the ends in, you have what's called roll holders? So you can see in the picture, you push them in and they hold the roll in place. So you can comfortably and conveniently pull out the saran wrap or the foil, and you'll never lose the roll. They're roll holders. Who didn't know that? I mean, come on, you guys, don't be shy out there. Type in if you didn't know it, because I bet half of you on this call didn't know it, and half of you on the call said, everybody knows that. The thinking when we talk about food safety and product safety is we think, everybody knows that. I mean, we all know that. The real truth of it is we don't always know as much as we think we know. Just like this little roll holder tip. I mean, I'm not a young person. I'm a senior member of our staff. And I can tell you, I just learned this. I just learned it less than a year ago, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought, who knows that? And I ran into my kitchen right away and looked to see if in fact they are really these little roll holders, and they are. So I know some of you are probably doing the same thing. So anyway, I share that with you. And the reason why is don't think you know as much as you think you know when it comes to product safety. Make sure you're teaching, you're educating, you're paying it forward. Okay. If you forget everything that I'm going to teach you, I want you to learn this one word. And it's really from a food law. But you say, wait a minute, Judy, wait a minute. We're not food. We're packaging material. You got your webinar mixed up. We're not the food people. Yeah, but here's the beauty of it. The industry, your customers treat you the same as they treat their food suppliers. Isn't that right? When you go to work, you put on a hairnet if you're in a food contact packaging facility, right? It's not because regulation says you have to do it. It says your customers say you better do it or else. So this is a food law, but it is also the law, quote unquote. I use air quotes around that. It's what the industry holds you accountable to. And it's what's called the may clause. So if you forget everything, remember the word may. Because what it basically says is you're adulterating the product. You're making a bad product. If you're doing anything, if it's been prepared, packed, or held under conditions whereby it may become contaminated. You understand? Whereby it may. So if you're in your packaging facility and you find rodent droppings, you find mouse droppings along the floor wall junction, you see, you don't have to find the mouse. You can say, I may have a rodent in my facility, therefore I'm in trouble. Okay? So just remember the may clause. Why do you put on a hairnet every day when you go into the facility? Because your hair may contaminate the product. There's also these initials that we use. They're called GMPs. You all have heard that. I bet you have signs on your facility door that says the GMPs for this facility include hairnets must be worn, no eating, no drinking, no smoking. You probably have that sign. The GMPs mean good manufacturing practice. And you can see the list on the screen. And even though this regulation does not apply to you specifically, as in you're regulated by it, your customers absolutely hold you accountable to it. So then AIB International comes along. We're a 100-year-old company. 1919 is when we were founded. And guess what we do? We take the GMPs and we define it even further. So we publish standards called food contact packaging and non-food contact packaging, and they're specific to your industry. So what we do is we take the good manufacturing practices and we define it even further. Okay, so for example, the good manufacturing practices may say something like, can't have rodents in your facility. AIB has a whole section on how you want to keep rodents outside of your facility. Do you understand the good manufacturing practices? We also teach something else. And before I forget, these are available to you at no cost, free of charge. So if you don't already have them, you can go to our website and download them, or send me an email and I'll put them right in your mailbox. Okay, just shoot me an email when we're done and I'll put them right in your mailbox so you don't even have to go searching for them. Just tell me if you need food contact or non-food contact, or you can certainly have both or all of the standards. We also teach a little concept. It's called ICE: identify, control, and eliminate. And you know what it really is? It's root cause analysis. And here's the easiest part in the world. The easiest part when you go into a packaging facility, the easiest thing in the world is to find things that are wrong. That's what we call identify. You go out there and you're doing a product safety inspection and you find things that may compromise the integrity of the product. So maybe you do in fact find those mouse droppings. You've identified it, right? And then the C is you control it. What are you going to do to fix it right away? I'm going to sweep up the rodent droppings, right? But have you eliminated the problem? Well, you don't know yet, right? Because you haven't done root cause analysis. You haven't thoroughly investigated to see if it's old droppings that may have been brought in on a dirty, broken pallet, or if you have an active mouse population in your facility. And that's the hard part of the ICE concept. That's the E, which means eliminate. And that is the hard part. So the easiest part is when you're coming in as an AIB inspector, for example, and we can identify and control. And then we leave you with the hardest part, which is the E, eliminate. So what I hope I'm going to share with you today, what are the things that the AIB inspectors are finding? What are they finding in your packaging facility when they come in to do those inspections? So we looked at the data from last year all the way to year to date. And we came up with a list of what are the most common misses in your industry. And I'm hoping by sharing them with you, you'll be able to identify, control, and hopefully eliminate them from your facility long before an inspector comes in, whether it's AIB or a customer or anybody else. Okay, so let's get started. Top issue: ceilings and overheads. Now, let's not forget when we find our container, let's say we're making milk bottles, okay, milk cartons. Where the product touches is what we call our product zone. But anything up above it, we also call that product zone. So we want to pay close attention to ceilings and overheads. What's going on above our product zone? What's going on above our containers? Do you keep covers? I bet most of your containers are covered, but not all of them. Okay, so you really want to take the time and walk through your facility and inspect up, look up, and pay attention to things like roof leaks. So here we've identified it. We have a roof leak. We're controlling it. We're putting up this catch tray. But have we eliminated the problem? And we haven't. All we've done is identified it and control it. So make sure you take the time to eliminate it. Make sure you have corrective action. Make sure that you're fixing the roof leak. You have a contractor coming in, or you have your maintenance people fixing it. But that's the piece that really will keep you out of trouble. The identify, control, and eliminate. Here's an air handling unit. So, anytime you have air handling where warm air is going to meet cold air, or cold air is going to meet warm air, you're going to end up with what problem? Condensation, right? And that's what you can see in the picture right here, condensation. And again, it's directly above my packaging material, which is located right below. So may that contaminate the packaging product? If you say yes, you have to do something about it. You got to react. So remember, I've identified it. It's condensation. I've controlled it. I'm going to wipe it clean. But have I eliminated it? Probably not. So again, be proactive. You know this is a common issue on inspection, so work on it today to make sure you can eliminate this from your facility. And then let's not forget peeling paint. I always say to most packaging plants, it's not if you have peeling paint in your facility, it's when you get peeling paint in your facility, because a lot of packaging facilities will have problems with peeling paint, obviously, or it wouldn't show up as one of our top issues. So make sure if you have beams, ceiling beams that are crossing, make sure that the paint isn't loose and flaking. But again, identify it. You found peeling paint, control it. You're going to scrape it clean. But what are you doing to eliminate it? What's causing it to peel in the first place? Was it poor application? Was it maybe you're cleaning it with maybe CO2, a pressure cleaning, and you're chipping the paint? I mean, what's causing it to actually peel in the first place? And that's the hard part. That's the E, and that is the hard part to really, that's the root cause analysis. Number 2, equipment and utensils. So think about what it says, equipment. So it's not saying the side of a piece of equipment, it's product zone. So when we see equipment, we have to think product zone, risk, whatever the product touches and the area right above it, okay? And then utensils, same thing. Think about what is contacting the product zone. Here you can see a conveyor belt that has a bad bearing, and you can see what's underneath that conveyor belt is a pile of metal shavings, and you can see it all along the floor underneath that conveyor belt. Now, you're saying, but Judy, it's below the conveyor belt. Let me ask you a question. May that contaminate? Because do you probably have people walking by in this area? Do you think everything just automatically falls to the floor? I mean, do you think some of this debris is going to be airborne? Probably. So again, I want you to really look at risk when you look at some of these issues. So when you look at your conveyor belts, I want you to really assess risk. Is there a risk to my product? And if you, again, may it contaminate? If you say, yes, it may, do something about it. Here's a picture, and there's 2 things wrong in this picture. One is you can see the condition of the belt. You can see the condition of the belt. It's in poor condition. There's loose fraying. What's the other issue? What's the other opportunity, the other challenge that you can see in this picture? How about somebody touching the bottles? No glove, just touching the bottles. Is that something that you would accept in your facility? Probably not, okay? So again, make sure you're paying attention to the product zone. Find the product zone, check the belts, check the condition of the belts, and check whatever's going on up above. And then take the time to find these utensils. Look around and find utensils. Here you can see one's missing a handle. You can see they're broken at the ends. You can see the cracks in them. So if you're using utensils for anything, maybe you're scooping resin or something like that, make sure the utensils are in good condition. Make sure they're in the same condition that you want your conveyor belts to be in, good condition. Number 3, temporary repairs. This probably doesn't surprise you, because sometimes to get from Monday, today's Monday, let's say you have some kind of failure on a piece of equipment and you just need it to run until Saturday when you can have the downtime. Is it okay to do a temporary repair, to actually get it from A to Z? And the answer is yes, it is okay to do a temporary repair as long as it doesn't compromise the integrity of the product, the packaging material. So if you want to do a temporary repair, for example, that's outside of the product zone, you certainly can do that. But what's the other thing that you think you need to do to make sure it's a temporary repair? Mark it as temporary. And how you do that is perhaps you put something in place and you put a date on it. So you know today is April 12th, and you know that you're going to fix it by April 17th, for example. You put a date on it in somebody's initials, so you know who wrote the work order, okay? What you never want to see is packaging material being used as a temporary repair, much like you can see in this photo here. So here they're manufacturing this container, and they've cut it and they've identified it now as oil, and they're using it for a temporary repair. That is something you never want to do. How about this item right here? And this is we all know resin, for example, how abrasive it can be. And what happened here was it started to cut through the side of the line, and you can see where the repair was made. So they wrapped it with electrical tape, but then the electrical tape started to disappear. Okay, where do you think it went? It went into the product stream. So then they wrapped it again and they wrapped it again. So this is, do you see anything on here that says it's temporary? Does it look like it's a permanent repair? I mean, when I look at that, somebody went through great effort I mean, first by putting electrical tape, and then by putting a piece of rubber, and then by putting some rope on there. Somebody went through great effort to fix something that ordinarily shouldn't have happened in the first place, but it did. And now, just by putting on that electrical tape, you've introduced a contaminant into that resin. Do you understand? Because where do you think the tape went when it deteriorated? So make sure when you're making repairs that they're temporary repairs and they don't in any way compromise the integrity of your product. Here's a temporary repair that you might see, and it's probably more suitable. It's outside of the product zone, but you again want to indicate that it's a temporary repair. Now, when this wouldn't be a suitable repair is if this is a corrugated packaging facility, because what you don't want to use is the product that you're manufacturing as part of your equipment design. So something you want to pay attention to. How about leaks and lubrication? How many times do we find excess lube directly over bottles, or directly over cans, or directly over closures, or directly over the corrugate, or over the film, over the packaging material? So now people say, but Judy, we use food grade lubricant. Doesn't that make it okay? Well, FDA says that there's lubricant that is incidental food contact. So when you look at something like that, you say if it's incidental or accidentally going to contaminate the product, it's not going to result in you having to recall it, because it's not a poisonous substance. It's not going to make a consumer sick. You're not going to pass it on to your customer and give them a poisonous substance. But it doesn't say you can add it to your product as an ingredient. Okay, so please keep that in mind. You always want to use food grade lubricants if there's a risk, if it may contaminate the product. Always use food grade lubricants. But please keep in mind, it doesn't give you a license to just keep adding it to the product. It's okay because it's food grade. I hope that makes sense to everybody. Okay. And then product zone cleaning. This is a piece of equipment, and right underneath it, if you look way to the left of this photograph, you can see a conveyor belt. And we were running packaging equipment on this line, but you can see how dirty what's going on the top of this conveyor belt. As dirty as this is, may this contaminate the product that's on that belt right next to it? Absolutely. So as soon as you see something like that, again, you have to react. How about this conveyor belt? It should be white all the way across, but we see white, 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 and then we see black, 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 black. So is that mold on the conveyor belt? Is that an oil leak that may have been transferred from something else? Whatever it is, it's a dirty product zone. So that's what we mean when we say soiled product zone. And then how about something like this? This is mold on a water line. But what if it were underneath? What if it were above a conveyor belt that's running product underneath it? So this is actually inside of a beverage plant, but what's running nearby are bottles, okay? Plastic bottles or PET bottles. So now we have this mold and this condensation directly over the open bottles that are underneath. May that contaminate? Absolutely. So those are the top issues that we're seeing at our, when we do our inspections. So how many of them are impacting your facility? And again, the easy part is to say, I've identified it. Dirty conveyor belt. I can control it. I can clean that conveyor belt and it's clean. But do you think I've solved the problem with the E? Have I eliminated the problem? Probably not. So make sure you get out there, you identify, you control, and you eliminate. All right. So now what's wrong with this picture? I'm going to give you a couple of pictures and I need your help. So you can type in the question box and type in your answers, but I'll give you the first one. Absolutely no gum chewing. You can all see it on the wall. And where is it? In front of all the gum machines. So absolutely no gum chewing, and we hang it above the gum machines. How about this picture? If I were driving to your facility and I saw this on the roof of your facility, what do you think I'm looking for? Okay. You're right. Birds. Okay. You all know it. Now, why I put this picture in here is, when does an inspection really begin for you? When you come to your facility, most people say, well, the inspector starts as soon as the inspector's in the lobby. And let me ask this question. If I told you right now there was an inspector in your lobby, what does everybody in the facility start doing? You can type it in. I mean, I know the answer, but type it in there. What does everybody start doing? They start cleaning, right? You start cleaning, you start sweeping the floor and cleaning and sweeping and cleaning and sweeping. What I want you to do is remember the 5 things that I just talked to you about. So what I would do if it were me in the facility and they said, Judy, there's an inspector in the lobby right now, I'm going to look up. I'm going to look up and I'm going to make sure there's no condensation above my line. I'm going to look up and make sure there's no loose peeling paint. I'm going to look up and make sure there isn't a roof leak. And then I'm going to look down at the conveyor belt itself and I'm going to make sure the conveyor belts are in good condition. Do you understand? I'm going to find the product and evaluate the risk. Same thing when I drive into the facility. I want you to come into your facility tomorrow morning when you come to your facility, and I want you to drive in as if you were buying the place. The company is going to be yours. I want you to drive in and do that first impression. What does it look like? Like if I drove into this facility and I see these birds, what do you think I'm inheriting? A bird problem, right? So I want you to drive into your facility tomorrow and do it as if you were buying it, and look around and say, you know what? This is a sharp manufacturing plant. This looks great. It's clean. There's no trash blowing up against the fence. The lights are all on. I don't see bird's nest and all of the lights and my company logo. I mean, if you do that, that's how you really want to start doing a product safety inspection. Truly, start doing that. The other thing is, you and I come to work a different way. You see, you come in as an employee, and when I come to visit, I come in as a visitor. So I come into a different parking lot. So occasionally, I encourage you to go in through the visitor parking lot. See what your visitors are seeing, because your employee parking lot may look just pristine, but when you drive in through the visitor lot, it might be a mess. So again, take the time and try a different way to work in the morning, and always keep that hat on. Like today, you're buying this facility. What's it look like? Do I want this facility? Okay. Now we're walking around in the facility. What do you see? What does it look like to you? Do we see any issues? Do we still have concerns now about this facility? It looks to me like they have a roof leak problem, and it's so bad. It's where the roof and the wall comes together. It's seeping in through the seams. So I can tell I have a pretty substantial roof leak problem, or I have a condensation problem. But I can see something's going on in the facility. I can identify it, right? I have some kind of moisture coming in. I can control it. Yep, I'm going to clean it up. But have I eliminated the problem? Probably not. Here's a conveyor belt, and this is not packaging, but you can see the reason for it. And again, for the reason for the picture, again, I can identify it. I have badly deteriorated belt lacing. I can control it. I can replace the belt, but will I eliminate it? Do you think I'm monitoring this belt? Is it part of my routine self-inspections? I mean, the fact that I allowed it to get in this significant of disrepair in the first place, probably not. Okay. And then let's not forget all this equipment that you have in your facility, the delivery vehicles, the forklifts, the pallet jacks, the scissor lifts. Are they on your master cleaning schedule? Remember, the master cleaning schedule is your cleaning schedule for other than daily cleaning tasks. If you're cleaning it every single day, it doesn't belong on your master schedule. It belongs on your housekeeping schedule. But the master cleaning schedule is for the things that don't happen every single day, the other than daily cleaning assignments. So this might be something that you clean once a week. Maybe it's every 2 weeks. Maybe it's once every 3 weeks. But the point is, you want to make sure it's on your cleaning schedule. Same thing with all of the pictures. You can see what else is going on in the picture. There's a trash can back there, has the number on it, 205. You want to make sure you're cleaning trash containers. All of those things belong on your master cleaning schedule. How about candy wrappers? Finding candy wrappers in the packaging plant. Do you allow eating, drinking, smoking, tobacco chewing? Probably not. And if you do, you shouldn't be. You should have defined areas, designated areas for these activities, whether it's in your break room or you set aside a workstation or work table in a specific area of the facility where it's allowed. But what you don't want is to be operating the line, eating, drinking, smoking cigarettes. It's not okay. All right. So make sure you pay attention to things such as this when you're doing your product inspection. The other thing you can see a footprint is make sure you're not stepping on the cartons that you have in the warehouse. Make sure you're not stepping on boxes. You're not trying to, here we were standing on boxes to get to another level. Make sure you're not doing that. Treat your containers, your packaging equipment, as if it's a food product, because that is truly how your customers are treating it. I'll give you an example in this picture. So here's some uncovered packaging film. This would never be acceptable inside of your customers. So make sure you're doing the same thing in your facility. Make sure you're treating all of these packaging films as product zone, product safe. Make sure you're protecting it from dirt, debris, overhead filth. I mean, truly make sure you're protecting the product zone. How about this picture? On the side of it, it says good product, and inside of it is trash containers. I mean, brooms and some trash bags. So make sure you're following your labeling. So if you have resin containers and they say good product, for example, make sure that's all that's in them is good product. If you have corrugated containers and that all it is good product, make sure if it says good product, you're not putting floor trash in there, because that will always get you in trouble on an inspection. And then don't forget chemical issues. So every facility should have a chemical control program. And how we verify if a chemical control program is effective, we'll go into your facility and we'll see some chemicals, just like here. And we'll walk over to it and we'll say, okay, you have some window cleaner, and we write down window cleaner. And then we notice this big gallon container in the back and it's not labeled. That's a problem. There's no label on that container. That's a problem. So we're writing that down. But then we look at the containers on the left-hand side. One of them is an air freshener. One of them is a stainless steel cleaner, and one of them is a pesticide. So now we're asking you questions about your pesticides. And what we find out is you have a service provider that's taking care of all your integrated pest management or your pest control needs, and that somebody brought the pesticide from home. Why? Because maybe they saw a wasp or they saw an ant, but they decided to bring it from home. See, that's a violation of your chemical control program. There's nobody at your facility that should be handling a household pesticide. Let your pest control company handle the pesticides. You don't need to handle the pesticides. So these are the things that we're writing down when we're doing our inspection. But again, we've identified, we've controlled, but we're not eliminating. And that's where we really need you to step up and help us with root cause analysis and eliminate these problems. Now, let's say I do have that window cleaner. I'm going to now ask you for your chemical control program, and I'm going to say, show me on your chemical control program where you have this window cleaner listed. And we expect you can show us that on your chemical control program. And that's how we know if you have an effective chemical control program. Okay? Storage practices is something else that's important to the packaging industry. You always want to make sure that you keep containers away from the wall, pallets away from the wall. Now, in this particular picture, you can see that they're close to the wall, not up against the wall, but they're pretty close. And I would encourage you to make sure you move this pallet away from the wall. Give yourself a few more inches if you possibly can. Ideally you want to keep it, you can see they have a white line painted. Ideally you want to keep it away from that white line, not on the white line. But let's say you haven't painted a white line. Make sure you have enough distance where you can comfortably walk behind it, because by walking behind it, you can inspect behind it. You can clean behind it. You can also make sure that you have rodent control devices behind it, mouse traps, for example, all along that wall junction. And it's important that we keep things away from the wall, because that's the way a rodent, if it comes into your facility, that's how they travel. They use their long whiskers and they'll travel touching that floor wall junction. And that's why you have all your mouse traps along the floor wall junction. So it's important that you keep that pallet away from the wall so a rodent can comfortably travel that back area. And that way you catch them always in your rodent control devices. And how do you handle damaged product? What happens if you bring in some product and as you're you're sliding a pallet of resin back there, and you cut the side of it, you break the side of it with your hand, you spill in resin everywhere. What do you do? Do you immediately discard the material? Do you throw it away for another day? Or do you tape it closed and maybe put a date on there? Okay, whatever your policy and your procedure is, make sure you're doing it. Make sure you're following your policy and procedure. My recommendation, of course, if you know that you tore something by just touching it with your hand, is that you put some tape on it, you date it, and then you move that pallet to the top of your rotation so you can use it quickly, get rid of it very quickly. But if it were a forklift, for example, that's stuck inside of the bag, the pallet went inside of the bag, I would throw that bag away, because you know how dirty the forks on a forklift are. So again, it's really up to you and your program at your facility. But always ask yourself, step back and say, may I contaminate what's going on inside of this? I don't know what's in it. Could be resin, it could be something else. May I contaminate? If you say, yes, those dirty forks are going to contaminate what's inside of it, throw it away. How about you protect all of your glass light bulbs in your facility, right? All your glass light bulbs are protected. Now, what happens when you have broken plastic like this? You can see the pieces missing. Make sure that you immediately, sometimes you write a work order and it might take a week or a couple weeks for the work order to get done. Make sure when you have something that is absolutely a product safety risk, an immediate risk to the product, make sure you have a system in place where you can prioritize or expedite a work order. Because if you have some exposed glass over your conveyor belts, for example, where your product is, that's not something you want to take weeks to get fixed. You want that fixed right away, very quickly. So make sure when you're doing your product inspections, your product safety inspections, that you have a priority system so you know what's urgent, what's critical, and what's a minor repair. Because let's say I have this and then I have maybe something else that's not, maybe I have a table that has a wobbly leg. I write a work order for both of them. One of them is priority. One of them can take its time and get fixed. You want to make sure you have a system in place that prioritizes a product safety issue, such as the one on your screen. Whoa, how about this problem? This is avian projectile or bird poop, right? And occasionally we will have a bird that sneaks into our facility occasionally. And what you want to make sure is that you're quickly getting that bird back outside, and then you thoroughly inspect to make sure that you're not finding any evidence that the bird is left behind. So make sure if you do have a bird that occasionally enters your facility, when they shouldn't, because you're keeping the doors all the time, those doors are tightly sealed. But let's say you're having that bad day where you open the door and that bird comes right in, and you do get the bird back out, make sure you inspect so you don't have items such as this. Because again, remember what I said at the beginning about finding rodent droppings? Don't have to find the rodent. It's the same thing with the bird. You need to be prepared to tell that inspector, we had a bird in here yesterday. We're still in the process of cleaning the area. Okay, make sure you're aware of what's going on in your environment. And then here's some temporary repairs. The problem with these temporary repairs is this is a facility that makes corrugated boxes. So what you don't want to see is the equipment that you're manufacturing. What you're actually making at your facility, you don't want to see it used as a temporary repair, because you always have the risk of it accidentally being introduced back into your product stream. Okay? So remember a couple of things. Remember the may clause, and I really mean that. If you're ever in doubt when it comes to product safety and food safety in your facility, just ask yourself, may this contaminate? If you say, yes, this may contaminate, do something about it, okay? Explain the why. It'll help change the culture. When we talk about product safety, remember, it's not just one day a year when an inspector's there or when your customer comes in. It's every single day. And if you really want to maintain product integrity every single day, and if you take the time and explain the May clause, remember at the beginning, the Reynolds wrap that I just learned after all these years of cooking, and I just learned there's such a thing as a roll holder. Don't assume that everybody in your facility knows as much as you do. If you're not sure, use your resources. AIB is always a great resource to you. Again, we'll provide you the standards at no cost at all. Great resource. AFTO, phenomenal resource. They have a lot of information on their website. So take the time. I know everybody's busy, but find 5 minutes in your day, visit the website and see what's out there. And remember root cause analysis. We use the simple concept of ICE. Identify the problem, control the problem, and eliminate the problem. And you really have the biggest part of that, and that is with the E, eliminate the problem. So I thank you all very much. Let's open it up for questions.
Well, let's go ahead and remind everyone, please enter into the Q&A window if you do have questions. Once again, in the Q&A window if you have questions. Judy, maybe one question is, does AIB only do work with food packaging, or do you do work with other packaging?
That's a great question. So we also do, and we have standards published for non-food. So if you do, for example, let's say you make cardboard boxes, shipping boxes, and not a pizza box that's a food contact, but you just make a corrugated box that you ship a pair of shoes in, for example. We will absolutely do an inspection at your facility using what we call the non-food contact consolidated standard. So it is written specific to the non-food contact industry. That's a great question. Thank you for that, Steve.
Uh, I guess maybe we should ask another question. If you were going to tell us some of the most challenging things you've seen in food packaging, I know we shared the most common violations here today. What are some of the biggest challenges the food packaging industry faces?
That's a hard question, and I think it's really changing a culture, and the reason why, and it really is a hard question, and the reason why is it's very difficult to get an entire workforce to look at something and say, but you have to treat it like a food product. And they're looking at it and they see a piece of cardboard, a piece of corrugate, and it's like to get people to think this, I have to treat this like a food product, but you can't forget your customers are treating you that way. So it's hard to get employees, especially in facilities that, maybe they're making like a pizza box, something like that, where it just looks like this flat piece of cardboard going by you on a conveyor belt. It's hard to get everybody to understand why they're wearing that hairnet, why they have to use food grade lubricant. It's really hard. So I think the packaging industry has a harder time changing the culture to really embrace a food safety culture. Now, I will also tell you this from experience, it is also one of the industries that I think has done the most amazing job of going from nothing, because it wasn't until really fairly recent in the last decade or so when customers started holding this industry accountable. And I think this industry has gone from zero to amazing in a really short amount of time.
Well, we have two really good questions that have just come in. One of them is food contact packaging subject to FDA regulations?
Well, I should leave that with my friends at FDA, but it sort of is and isn't, and that's why it's not a real clear answer. So you can't do anything if it takes you back. If you're doing an inspection, for example, let's take a regulator and they're doing an inspection. They're going to do that ICE, that identify, control, and eliminate. And for them to do root cause analysis, it may absolutely take them back to food contact packaging. It certainly can. Now, why I say that's a tough one, because it really hasn't done that recently. So it can happen, but it hasn't really happened in recent. But again, I can leave that to Steve for you and your team to to tackle.
I would answer that just a little bit, Judy, and I'd say yes, it can fall under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act, particularly if it is truly food contact surface. So
Mhm.
yes, and same thing in the retail arena that doesn't necessarily fall under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act. We have one more question, which is a great question. For animal food packaging, would it be sufficient to emulate the human food packaging standards?
Yes, that's a great question. And the answer, short answer is yes, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Great question. Thank you for that question.
Well, Judy, anything else you'd like to share? It looks like that was our last question.
Nope. As always, I thank the packaging industry. I think this industry has really demonstrated, uh, like I said, the industry has come leaps and bounds. When I started in the industry a long time ago, we were not inspecting packaging facilities. It's like, for what reason? And then we started to slowly do it, and now it's a large percentage of what we inspect. And again, the reason why, it's not just because there's this fear of FDA. It's not the case at all. There's truly a fear of the customer not being satisfied with what you're providing them. And I think the industry is regulated by itself, and that is, the industry is regulated by the customers.
Absolutely. Well,
Thank you so much.
thank you, Judy. And once again, we'll remind everyone you'll be receiving an email with a link to all the whole series, and we urge you to take a look at those if you didn't get to participate on all of them. And once again, thank you to Judy and our partners at AIB International for a great job on this series of webinars. We appreciate all of you joining us, and have a wonderful week.